こんばんは、皆さん。私はジョーダン。
私はチャー。
私はデビッド。
私はアルファンソです。And together we are called ジョーチャダールです。はい、お願いします。
Okay, stop.
Stop what?
This isn't a comedy bit, you know. This is a presentation. We are presenters. We are not comedians.
Ignore him. Anyway, this presentation is going to be about, you guessed it, anime.
As if they couldn't tell by the way we look right now.
Baka bakashi. Like Jordan-san said, this is serious. You gotta make it clear to the viewers back home, or else they won't get it.
Okay, back on track, guys. As Cha stated before, our presentation is about anime, something we all, well, I hope most of you guys, know and love.
We will be talking to you today about a number of different topics on this particular medium of entertainment, such as its history, animation techniques, anime as an industry, and much more.
And with that said, let's hop right into...
Stop.
What is it now?
Aren't you all getting ahead of yourselves? We still haven't talked about the most important thing. We gotta talk about this before we can even touch on all the things you mentioned.
And, what might that be?
We've got to explain to them what anime is.
Don't be silly, Alfonso. Everyone here should already know what anime is.
But do you really know what anime is?
Well, if it's really so important, then why don't you do the honors and explain it to us first then?
Oh, well, if you insist. Dewa, anime te nani? So anime. I guess we could start out with the plain and simple dictionary definition of what an anime is. Anime is a style of Japanese film and television animation, typically aimed at adults as well as children. Kinda bland, right? I thought so. Putting this simple definition aside, I'm going to show you a bit more about what anime really is before we go into the topics the guys are covering, so you can really sit back and appreciate this medium of entertainment to its fullest. So to be more specific, the term anime is a term for Japanese animation. Many people get confused as to if a certain cartoon could be considered an anime, and they often label the show an anime if 1. They speak Japanese, or 2. If the show in question has a distinct anime art style. Jordan is going to go in more into detail about the different animation techniques and styles later, so for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, then wait for his section. Anyways, what I'm trying to explain is that the two factors that I just mentioned do not determine if the show is an anime or not. Simply put, an anime is a Japanese animation. Doesn't matter about the art style or anything like that. One very popular show that many people in the past were undecided if it was an anime or not was Avatar: The Last Airbender, which was an American-made animation created and produced by Brian Konicito and Michael Dante DiMartino. When the show first came out, the fan base of the show was in an uproar as to whether to call this anime or not. Now, based on my definition before on what an anime is this show an anime? Simply put, no. If it is not a Japanese animation, then it is not an anime. But Alfonso Sensei, you're going on and on about this, if it's an anime or not business. What makes the Japanese anime so different from our cartoons here in America? You wonderful students are probably asking right now. And I will tell you this. Other than those late-night adult swim shows or more mature cartoons such as Family Guy or The Simpsons, which are geared towards more mature audience, most of the cartoons and animations here in the States are geared towards younger children. You know the shows I'm talking about. Just think of the stuff we grew up with, like The Rugrats, Hey Arnold, Recess, you name it. These shows were made to appeal to a younger audience. And like I said before, of course you have your cartoons for adults and such, but the cartoon industry in America is more focused on appealing to children, and even up to young adults, more than your 35-year-old office workers. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where the great divide is drawn. In Japan, people of all ages watch anime. Young, old, student, mom, salaryman, you name it. The anime industry in Japan appeals to its viewer base as a whole instead of being focused on a certain age group to produce content for. Probably one of the many reasons as to why this is because there are just so many genres of anime that it appeals to so many different age groups. Let's just go ahead and list off a few of the numerous genres here. We have action, adventure, comedy, drama, ecchi, fantasy, historical, mecha, romance, science fiction, seinen, shoujo, shonen, slice of life, sports, etc. You kind of get my point. Out of all these genres, one is very likely to find a show that appeals to him or her. Anime is supposed to be for everybody.
Early cartoonists took the influence from the Western invention, such as newspaper, comic script, These ideas allowed Japanese artists to create a story by using word balloons and linear storyline. These basic structure will eventually lead to modern manga development. The three early successful artists are Katsuo Shiashin, which shown here is the moving picture of the first animation experience developed by cartoonists. The second one is Junichi Koichi, which shown here titled Dual Sword by him using paper cut style, which is lay on a table and move it as it change and create the character movement. This early technique will soon be adapted by the animation director of the 1930s. Although through the influence by the West, the animation industry wasn't popular by demand. It was a slowly start. But beside the loss of the 140,000 life lost, the Great Kanto earthquake of the 1923 did a large amount of damage for the animation industry. After the destruction from the earthquake, many animators has to restart from scratch, but that wasn't easy to come by, simply because the East was dominated by the West animation, and that animation studio was Disney. With an arrival invasion through the 1930s, within a decade, Japan will soon enter World War II, which will put censorship on media. During this time, animators either meet the government standard or put into detention. Those who weren't banned or didn't enlist it were to influence people by creating propaganda of comic strips against Japan enemies. Many artists and cartoonists came together during this time and formed. Among these new groups were the New Cartoonists Association of Japan and the New Cartoonist Faction Group. After the war, Japan animation industry will soon change forever with a young aspiring artist. He was Asuma Tezuka, also known as god of both anime and manga. Tezuka was a fan of Walt Disney Animation at youth. Throughout his career, Tezuka will create and write more than 700 manga series. His important work were Blackjack, The Phoenix, Princess Knight, but his most iconic work was Astro Boy. A story of a little robotic boy with an atomic heart and was disowned by his creator. He ends up being taken by people who care and accept him as who he was. Astro Boy will eventually storm over US broadcasts in the early 60s. As the 50s ended, the 60s was at the animation first debut in television. Manga Calendar took the honor of being the first to broadcast in 1962. As the era of the 60s ended, many anime began to branch off to different new genres. The 70s era was mainly focused on sci-fi and the birth of mecha. With the space race tension ended between the United States and the Soviets and the landing on the moon in 1964, the space frontier gave many creative ideas to the animation industry. Few popular ones were G-Force, Great Mazinger, Space Battleship Yamato. The mech anime that exploded in the late 70s dealt with character development and trendy work like New Type. It was called Mobile Suit Gundam. Another different anime genre that targeted mature audience was Lupin the Third, which was directed by Hayao Miyazaki, whom will go on creating Studio Ghibli. The 80s, which was known as the golden year of animation. It was also the boom of the otaku subculture with the help of Sony Home Video Entertainment. With this access, many of the anime studios closed down. Anime that was the hit of the 80s were Night on the Galactic Railroad, Tale of Genji, Graves of the Fireflies, and Macross, which stormed the US. Akira, a graphically violent and gruesome anime, which was an international hit but a domestic failure. With the death of Osamu Tezuka bring a close to the era. Anime in the 90s advanced tremendously from 1991 to 1995. Sailor Moon, a girl audience target, was aired in the United States. With the help of Disney in 1999, Princess Mononoke debuted in US and was a milestone hit. Toonami launched by Cartoon Network in 1997, which broadcast non-American cartoons. International audience also enjoy popular anime such as Digimon, Pokemon, Dragon Ball, and Neon Genesis Evangelion, while Cowboy Bebop and X, the motion picture, attracted mature audience in the West. In the coming year of 2000 also attracted late night broadcast anime and a new genre fan service for the die-hard otaku audience, which will become very profitable in Japan. Many popular manga and light novels from the 90s was brought to life, such as Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, and Fullmetal Alchemist, which were popular hits of the manga. While light novels hit was Clannad, Canyon, Shuffle, and Fate Stay Night, anime in the digital era thrived due to the dedication of many Japanese artists who are willing to exploit the possible of animation, and that these gifted artists believe beyond more than just linear comic strip. It was the willingness to be fearless and experiment that has made anime dynamic and appealing to entertain their vast variety of audience.
In the Japanese culture, the meaning of working as a group is known to be extremely important. Generally, it could be said that no decisions are being made individually. Everything is being negotiated between all the people involved in the given matter. One of the most critical questions is, how is anime made? Well, the process depends on who's pushing for an idea and who's backing it up. It can be animation studios themselves, but many animes are adaptations of mangas, light novels, and even video games such as Pokemon. When an anime is being planned out, there are certain things that need to be taken into consideration, such as how each episode in an anime is going to play out in the entire series. First, the character designs need to be sketched out for the story, if there even is one made yet. The anime company needs to map out the story and be able to find a good way to divide it out into episodes. Only then will the first episode be made. After the story is written out on paper or typed on the computer, however you write your stories out, the storyboard would then be the initiation to the animation. Storyboards are the building block to an anime. This includes the different number of movements and characters, and the camera angles, dialogue, etc. Once all the frames for an anime series are drawn, the animators will digitize all the hand-drawn frames and begin the animation process from them. The animators will take the hand-drawn frames and use programs such as Photoshop, kind of like what I am using to make this animation, but they'll use Photoshop to paint and color the frames that were hand-drawn. Then special effects artists will add in effects to the frames to give them cool and magical effects, such as lightning or energy beams. The frames in motion are timed precisely, especially for when they need voice acting. Voice acting is one of the anime components that has to correlate with the animation. Voice acting usually starts as the animators are still in the process of animating, but it can also be done or revised after the animation is complete to ensure the voice acting and animation is in sync with each other. While most animes are composed of Japanese voice actors, there are also English dubbed versions of the animations too. English dubbed animes are usually done within a year after the Japanese version is released to the Japanese public. In order to do an English dubbed anime, an animation company in the United States has to register part of the original Japanese anime from the original company and hire English voice actors to voice over the characters. Usually they have to change up the wording in the character dialogue when dubbing to ensure that the voice actors are still in sync with the original animation. Because of this, meaning from the original Japanese version of the anime can be lost. Also, when animes are brought to the US as kid shows, there is actually a lot of censorship that goes on in the English dubbed animes. Some of the obvious differences in the Japanese and US version of an anime can range from whether or not the anime has blood, cigarettes, guns, and alcohol. This is common in action-themed animes such as One Piece, Dragon Ball, Pokemon, etc. There's a censorship in Pokemon where a giant rice ball is replaced with a giant sandwich in the English dub. Such censorship really takes away the culture behind the anime, trying to Americanize the anime and take away the Japanese element from it. This is probably one of the biggest reasons anime fans dislike English dubbed animes.
Now let's move on to a more serious topic. Anime is dying.
Oh no, what are we gonna do?
そんな大変大変
No way!
Guys,
Oh, what are we
believe
gonna do?
no!
guys, don't flip out. That was only the hook to my introduction. Please let me elaborate on what I meant. Over the course of the past 3 decades, the anime industry has seen a rise in popularity and unfortunately has begun to see its decline according to many online articles. Although anime began some time ago, it wasn't until the late 80s and early 90s that anime saw its first debut. This hype remained until late 2005 when the animation industry saw its peak in revenue. Since then, the animation industry has begun to decline due to fierce competition and other elements which I will discuss later. During the 1990s, anime was dubbed Japan's chief export. Anime films account for at least half of movie tickets sold in Japan, and in 1997 the anime film called Princess Mononoke became the top grossing film of all time in Japan, surpassed only by Titanic a few months later. Princess Mononoke had an estimated budget of about 2.34 billion yen or 23.5 million US dollars. In return, the film made an accumulated total of roughly 14.5 billion yen or $160 million from box offices worldwide. However, it is not the norm for conventional anime to make such high return profits from animation alone. The average short animation has a budget of around 2 to 4 million US dollars for entire series. Currently, the animation industry consists of more than 430 production companies that concentrate on making animation series at an average cost of 100,000 to 300,000 US dollars per episode. Let's face it, nobody is going to dish out these amounts of dollars unless they're expecting a nice profit. The thing is that most animations, even during the peak of the animation industry, didn't make much profit from the animations alone. Unbeknownst to many anime viewers, short 12 to 13 episode anime are meant to be no more than late night infomercials intended to cover the gaps during late night hours. The animation industry actually makes most of its money from the sales of merchandise such as toys, shirts, and posters. Due to the rise in competition between animation producers, most anime, especially the majority of it that now airs late at night, doesn't last long enough or doesn't appeal to enough people for merchandise to be all that profitable. These anime must make most of their money back almost entirely from DVD or Blu-ray sales. During the late 90s and early 2000s, it was feasible for animation production companies to turn a profit through DVD sales as competition was less stifling. Official animation DVDs sold for as much as $90 back then and have since dropped to about $60 for premium volume packages consisting of 2 to 4 episodes and $25 for entire series in the US. Production companies only receive roughly 46% of the net revenue from animation products. This means that a production company needed to sell roughly 47,100 volumes at a price of $90 to break even in creating a 13-episode series that cost $150 per episode. Today, these companies would need to sell 62,800 of the premium volume packages to make up for the cost of a similar anime. The final point I want to make is that nowadays, people don't buy DVDs or Blu-rays as much as people used to. If people want to watch a particular anime, they'll use the internet to download it or find a website that streams it and watch it from there. This, of course, reduces the income of the producers. The way they get past some of these obstacles is by selling the right to air these shows to things like Netflix, Crunchyroll, or Hulu for a set price. If the show makes more than what was originally paid, the production company gets a 23 to 26 commission thereafter. These are the reasons why the industry is moving forward to some of the newer, more innovative anime production styles previously discussed by Jordan. As a result, the quality of anime is decreasing, causing anime fans to turn away from a lot of the newer anime that is basically ripping off other anime to turn a quick profit. This is basically what is causing the animation industry to spiral downward. But fear not, this cycle happens to many industries and it actually helps weed out the poorly made anime. This means that the anime industry we used to know and love will probably die out within the next 20 years, but this does not mean that anime itself would die out. Anime is here to stay, even though the methods used to make them will continue to change.
Thank you, David, for that encouraging statement. I'm sure none of us want anime to die out anytime soon. Now, let's top this whole thing off with a topic I'm sure Sensei is eagerly waiting to hear about. How does anime influence the Japanese culture, or what does the anime contribute to the culture? I'll be talking about a few specific anime series in a bit of detail that have had a large impact on the culture. One of the series that has had the most profound impact on the Japanese society until today is probably Neon Genesis Evangelion. This series is popular enough today that I need not introduce it here. Suffice to say that it proved extremely popular in Japan. It was this popularity itself that influenced the Japanese society in a significant way. Neon Genesis Evangelion was not only popular among the ardent otaku, but it also drew attention from the general public. It caused many casual TV viewers who had not seen anime before to acknowledge it as a valid medium of expression. Evangelion did to casual TV viewers exactly what Studio Ghibli did to casual moviegoers. Proved that Japanese animation is capable of reaching high intellectual levels and touching mature subjects. There have been many other series that influenced the Japanese society, albeit in more delicate and specific ways. Hikaru no Go is a series about young talented boys playing the traditional Japanese board game Go, and created a Go boom in Japan. It exposed many children and some adults to the charms of Go and invigorated this old sport. Nodame Cantabile is a series about talented musicians, and it brought forth a classical music boom, although one can make the argument that classical music has always been popular in Japan. Both series, it should be noted, were first published as manga, but although their manga counterparts were popular, the anime series which aired on primetime reached a much bigger audience and had much more profound influence. This should come to no surprise, as both these anime series provided incentives that could not be found in their respective manga. Hikaru no Go had an educational extra at the end of each chapter that taught the basics of Go. Nodame Cantabile's incentive was even greater. Viewers who watched the series were able to listen to the songs being played, something that the manga could not provide. If we stray from the realm of anime, there are records of a much earlier animated series that had a similar impact on the Japanese society. In the 1960s, the animated cartoon Popeye was very popular in Japan. In the show, one of the characters, a gluttonous guy named Wimpy, was shown eating hamburgers, singing about them and fantasizing about them. Since hamburgers were non-existent in Japan at the time, the Japanese viewers were particularly fascinated by this culinary treat. The hamburgers shown in Popeye caused an unprecedented demand for hamburgers in Japan, and many restaurants and food stands rose to the occasion and added hamburgers to their menus. These hamburgers were not your typical beef patties. During the 60s, beef was rare, expensive, and most Japanese never tasted it before. So instead of offering beef, Japanese restaurants and food stands made hamburgers using ground fish meat, and later, whale meat. Returning to the issue at hand, perhaps the most unique influence anime has had over the Japanese society can be seen in the seamless way in which anime has integrated into the Japanese culture. Show me a Japanese kid who doesn't know about Pokemon, a teenager who hasn't heard the opening theme song from Dragon Ball Z, or an adult who doesn't think My Neighbor Totoro is an indispensable part of the Japanese culture and a reminder of Japan's agricultural past. Anime influences the Oricon music chart because a small yet noticeable number of famous singers and bands, such as Mizuki Nana and Garnet Crow, gained their popularity through their involvement in anime. Anime even occasionally influences the type of merchandise sold in convenience stores and food chains. You can even be sure that convenience stores and food chains pay close attention to the popularity of anime series and strike deals to promote their products or brands using anime-related goods or branding. Seeing anime-themed convenience stores that sell products with covers or drawings from one specific anime has become very common, and once in a while, you do see a familiar Shonen Jump character smiling at you from the banner of one of these big food chain restaurants. Since popularity usually translates into attention, and attention in turn can become influential, there will be plenty of opportunities for anime to attract attention from the Japanese society and influence it in the future.
Everyone, thank you for watching.
We all hope that our little presentation has given you a little information about some of the anime you have watched on a daily basis.
Demo! There's still so much I still want to talk about!
Huh? Sure, there are still a few little things here and there, but everybody probably wants to go home now, you know.
No! There's still time! We need to talk about...
We better get out of here before we keep going.
We will now leave it up to our boring 3D counterparts to take any questions you might have.
Now then.
ありがとうございました